we are recording.
What's up, everybody?
Hello, everyone.
Cinematic Suffering. Hey. Woo-hoo. Hello.
We're back.
We are indeed. Tonight we are digging in to Beyond the Gates.
Sorry, I initiated too much fog.
Fog, right.
Yeah, Beyond the Gates. If you saw our watch along, you'll know that we barely paid attention to it, but nonetheless, we did derive some meaning or understanding from it, so we'll discuss.
Some deep emotional meaning.
Yeah.
Yes. The film was released in 2016. It's a magnum opus. Directed by Jackson Stewart and written by Jackson Stewart and Stephen Scarlatta. It stars Graham Skipper, Chase Williamson, Brea Grant, Jesse Merlin, and the incomparable Barbara Crampton.
Hell yeah. Let's watch the theatrical trailer real quick. For people on YouTube, you'll be able to see this, but if you're listening to the podcast, just imagine the trailer by the sounds you'll hear.
Don't close your eyes because you're probably driving.
Hey,
they get the same smoke machine.
What if he's okay?
What do you mean?
I mean, not dead.
It's been 7 months. If he's out there, it's not our problem anymore.
Look at this place. Your dad really did a good job keeping it up, huh?
Yeah, well, not much could pull him out of here.
Do you have Dad's keys to the office?
What do you think's back there?
Guess we'll find out.
This is momentous.
Shut up.
Welcome, curious viewers.
We found this weird, probably banned VCR game. It's like a board game, but you gotta watch it.
Obtaining the 4 keys allows passage beyond the gates. Only there can your father's soul be saved.
Did you just hear that?
Where did you say you found this again?
Hey, did you try to get into the house last night?
Why? Did someone try and break in?
I felt like somebody was watching us.
Maybe you need to take a break from this for a while.
We think our father bought this from your store. What if we just stopped?
I'm not gonna stop until we find Dad.
And I suggest you play the game.
Where the hell did this come from?
Find your father. Take the final key. And become one with your new reality.
That lady was smoking hot. I think I want it.
Sure is now.
I don't remember that last part being in the actual movie.
I was about to say there's some things in there that kind of surprised me a little bit, and
we put the B-roll in the trailer. What's the big whip?
This is one of those things where, first of all, they said the writing on it, for the exclamations from the reviews was fun and hilarious, and I was just wondering, did these people watch the movie? What a part about it was fun and hilarious?
Yeah, it was, I was probably more frustrated with it in certain ways as we were watching it than on thinking back on it. I'm probably a little bit more forgiving having sat with it a minute, but
yeah. No, I totally agree. In fact, I was thinking about that today before we're heading into the podcast here, that maybe we're a little bit harsh going into it, and we certainly made that known through the watch through, but after letting it simmer for a couple of days, because when did we watch it, on Friday? It's been a couple of days. So
yeah, we had the weekend to really absorb what we saw. I don't apologize for my initial reaction because it did have some some pacing problems, but I did a tiny bit more research. You might have to on the director Jackson Stewart, and it turns out that he was Stuart Gordon's understudy. Stuart Gordon, if any of you don't know, is the director, the infamous director of the classic Reanimator, From Beyond, Faust. What's
Castle
Society?
Freak.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I noted that I had no idea Jackson Stewart was associated with Stuart Gordon at all. So that's a really cool little nugget of information you dug up there, because throughout the watch through, there was constant nods to Stuart Gordon.
Yeah.
Constant. I mean, not only with the main character's name was Gordon for one.
Yeah.
There's actors that were used in this little play thing that was done here in Los Angeles called Reanimated the Musical, and Stuart Gordon was heavily involved in that. And I actually met Stuart Gordon at one of those shows, which was really cool. And
That is cool.
And a couple of these actors were in that show, so all that stuff was tied in, along with Barbara Crampton as well, who was famous to be in a lot of those Gordon films.
Yeah, it was almost like the Stuart Gordon was the linchpin for this movie. They might have been able to be a little bit more inspired in some ways. Like I didn't hate the movie, but it was frustrating. Like the thing that frustrated me about it was that you have three characters that are the main kind of characters in the movie that weren't really that interesting. I felt like everybody in it was a better actor than what they were given. They weren't given a lot to work with. They all seemed like fine actors to me, but they just it was kind of like, come on, do something. That's kind of what I was always urging the movie to do. Is something.
No, that's a great point, because all these guys are no, if they're not over the top the best actors ever, they're very competent actors, because I have seen them in a few things. So it was kind of surprising when I first saw this. I explained it on the watch through for the people who are not following us on Patreon to see this watch through. Then
And you need to.
I'll just rehash what I just said. I said there was that I had watched about 20 minutes of this film before I suggested it for cinematic suffering, because my wife and I were sitting down, and we just wanted to watch a bad horror film, or at least a horror film, not wanting it to be bad, but she couldn't get through the first 10 minutes of it, and I said, well, I'm going to give it a little bit more of a chance, and then by 20 minutes I was like, I'm out too. But then I was like, this is something for cinematic, so I immediately contacted Clay, and I was like, let's check out the trailer for this film, let's check it out. And so and that dull pacing keeps going for maybe until the first legitimate kill, which happens 48 minutes, 50 minutes into the movie.
It's unacceptably long into the movie, but it was kind of like it's almost like if you go to see a comedian and you don't laugh through the first half of their set, and then when you finally do, it's almost a reprieve. And that was when the first kill was like, oh, finally a kill. But what kind of surprised me about this is like, okay, it's an obvious low budget film that we're dealing with. You can tell it's a new director, because they're making some kind of, he's making some mistakes. I'd say he's kind of making some new director mistakes. Yeah. So you're like, all right, but then the kills show up, and it's like, who did you get to do the FX for this? Because they aren't bad at all. Like there's some the redeeming factor of these is that there's some pretty good kills in there. There's one headshot that's like, damn man, that looks like they made a real convincing bust of the actor's head, and it really looked good. I was like, wow, it's surprising that they actually kind of come with the gore when they need to.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I think when that finally happened, we were both like, you were cheering. I know you were cheering. You're like, fuck yes. I was like,
finally.
I was just like breathing kind of a sigh of relief, going, oh my God, finally we're, doing something at least. And yeah, the special gore effects were really great. And like I said, I think when you think of the redeeming value of a movie, you don't particularly think maybe it's the gore effects, but I think this is what kind of brought you back into the film to like, okay, let's see where this keeps going. Unfortunately, the kill count is rather still low. There's not a lot of people in the movie, so that's to be expected, I guess.
There weren't a lot of characters to kill. Like they weren't developed well. Like if most of your movie is people sitting around talking in a room, they need to be saying something that keeps the audience interested in it. And it was they didn't give them anything to work with. Like there's some relationship tension between the lead character and his romantic interest. He used to be a drunk. He's a recovering alcoholic, and I guess
Yeah.
he's sexually incompetent because he does it like he doesn't want to, do it with his wife. But none of that stuff ever hits home. It's not
Yeah,
that
there's
interesting.
there's a little subplot, and I don't know, you may have missed it, but where she was, she kind of alluded to she hurt her wrists, and she hurt her wrists like in an early period. They're sitting around the table, her, the brothers, Gordon, and whoever the other brother was, and the other brother, the homeless brothers, was like, "Oh, how did you hurt your wrist?" And she goes, "Oh, I fell." So it was later explained that Gordon, her boyfriend, had physically assaulted her while he was drunk, and I guess pushed her down, and she broke her wrist or something like that. And that's traumatic, and that's but I'm thinking, how does that fit into the movie as a whole? Is this something that could be removed from the movie, and the movie would still be just as vapid as it was? It felt like they were trying to force something in that was meaningful, but at the same time, it felt like a little bit too much.
It must not have been something that they really hammered home, because I watched it with you initially, and then I watched it again. I watched our our commentary of it again, just so that I had all the plot points in my head, and I missed it twice.
Yeah, it's definitely in there, and it reminded me of they're trying to get Gordon to be a sympathetic character that we care about, right? And
they fail.
They fail. That's not the only reason they fail. Not just because of this plot point. Because I just think I go back to think of The Shining, and the movie The Shining, and Stanley Kubrick's version, and how Jack Torrance starts off as, oh, you kind of think he's a good guy from the very beginning, but you don't really, because you kind of get this slimy aspect to him, and then it's slowly it's not slow. I guess Kubrick, it's always slowly revealed that he was an abusive drunk husband and father who abused his kid and pretty much abused his wife too, and it made him totally unlikable, and that's how it was. I mean, if that was the direction they were going to go with Gordon, I would have understood that, but they're trying to give him this weird redemption arc of him physically assaulting his wife, but we don't see anything else that comes from that. So
the tone of their relationship doesn't reflect like spousal abuse at all. I mean, but that's almost kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah, or even long term. We don't know how long this couple's been together.
They don't tell us. No.
They don't tell us, right? And we don't. And it's just still a girlfriend and boyfriend situation. They're not married.
No, I don't think so. They never mentioned. No one's ever introduced as their spouse. So.
Right. So it's just like kind of some of these weird, small, minor choices. It's like, why not make them married? Why not make them a long-time married couple that by long time, maybe they've been married 5 years, and at the beginning of that relationship is when he did that, and he's trying to reverse his ways up to this point. But we don't know. They could have. To me, it seems like they're just a girlfriend boyfriend. They've been together for a year maybe, and anyways.
Well, I mean, and the kind of character that they present from Gordon, I can see why he was cast as the Herbert West character in the Reanimator musical, because he's perfect for that. And I watched some excerpts from the play, and he's great in it. He's a good singer, that play looks fun.
Oh, it was hilarious. Great.
Yeah. And so I can see why he was cast in that, but in this, he kind of comes off like a Herbert West character, but it doesn't make him very likable in a way.
Yeah.
Like he definitely doesn't have Jeffrey Combs gravitas. Who does though?
Right.
But, I mean, he seems like introverted and just weird and stiff and bad socially. Like they don't give us a whole lot of reasons to root for him. They don't give us anything really, they don't give us a reason to really like or dislike anybody that much. Like the characters that you can tell are obviously set up to be contemptible villains, or that are going to get killed later on, or still they spend so little time and effort with them developing their character that you're kind of like, okay, I'm glad there's a kill, but it was almost like we said, a reprieve from the boredom of the movie. And,
right.
One thing that kind of struck me about it too is it's like in a movie like this, the board game is basically the big MacGuffin of the film. It's the Necronomicon of this movie, and it wasn't that interesting. It wasn't like you never get a good sense that they really fleshed out how the game is played, and it just, it would have worked better if there were some really creepy, disturbing illustrations involved with it, or if there was just seemed to be more backstory and lore associated with the game itself. It didn't have that. It was just, it was a good idea that just wasn't executed all that well, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you're right. The biggest selling point of this is that it's a take on the old 80s. Well, not old 80s, but late 80s, early 90s. There's a big thing about VHS games and VHS board games. You pop the video game, or you pop the VHS tape into your VCR player, and you follow along. Maybe pause it every once in a while as you played the game, and you kind of work in sync with the VHS. So yeah, you'd think that would be a huge part of it because that's how it's advertised. And you'd think there'd be some kind of game, little more complex game mechanics later, right? Because it just seemed like they're just, oh, well, this rule is now this, or we have to do this now. We have to do this now. It's like, well, where do these cards come from? Remember, they're going through cards.
Yeah,
they were tarot cards.
They were pretty well illustrated.
Yeah.
Of course, as illustrator, I'm gonna notice that, but they were pretty well illustrated. But like the I wouldn't. It's not that I need the game to be just like something that look like something that you could go to the store and buy and actually play. It would be nice, but I understand that's a big ask. But
sure,
it seemed pretty slapped together, and still, it sounds like we hated it. There were certain aspects of it that I found frustrating. I'm rooting for the director because I think that there's something there. It's kind of like, have you ever gotten into a band and then you realize that you were about maybe 3 albums into their career and you go back and listen to the first one and it was like, wow, they've come a long way. This feels like his first EP. It feels like there's something there. He's got, I think he's got a lot of potential, but he needs to work on characters that we can get into, or just kind of make it so absurd and ridiculous. Maybe make it just an outright comedy to keep you invested in the people on the screen. If you're spending that much time with them not getting killed, they need to be doing something there. I think that's why a lot of directors in the 80s kind of leaned on a lot of nudity and crass humor.
Yeah, and if he was going to be taking from those things, he should have gone all in. I think you mentioned comedy, where this film really wanted to play up some of the comedic aspects of it, but they fell flat a couple of times. Sometimes it was kind of funny to see the two brothers interact with each other, doing the awkward hugs where they didn't know whether to give a hug or to shake their hand, and then at the end of the film they give each other a sincere hug. I thought that was great. I actually did.
It was. But you can see what he was going for, but
the stuff, the events leading up to it, the awkward little funny, supposedly funny stuff, it just wasn't working for me. I was just
it fell flat. If they were going for jokes, it just came off kind of flat and awkward. It's like when you make a joke that no one even registers as a joke, and then they just stare at you. That's kind of how it felt. Well, it happens to me multiple times on a day.
Yeah, I can't. I tell 10 great dad jokes to my wife, and she maybe laughs at one. So,
well, wives are never a good audience. They never appreciate our brilliance,
right?
Or they're sick to death of hearing about it every day.
They realize they don't have to laugh anymore to make us feel better.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Move out? It's over for both of us, buddy.
But yeah, from the very beginning, though, we don't really get a sense of time. Again, it's weird. We see a family hanging up a grand opening sign on a video store back, I guess, in 1990 or whatever. And it's this family. You see this kid with glasses on, and then you see this other kid with no glasses, and they made sure to really point those kids out. And then the last shot of that first scene is just the dad just just doing this weird look, and I'm like,
uneventful.
It was uneventful because we don't really know what happened to the dad, because that was one of the main plot points. Dad disappeared. He's been disappearing. One of the things they said, he was disappearing on and off throughout the years, and then he just disappeared permanently 7 months ago.
Got to get some cigarettes and milk. Cigarettes and milk. Like those kids are like, I've never seen him smoke a cigarette, and I've never had a sip of milk in my entire life. But he's just been gone. Well, and that's another thing. It's an odd comparison. But you know how in like all these SNL movies, they always seem to start off with like a flashback. Like here's like, you know, I don't know, like Half Baked, Talladega Nights, like any of these silly comedies. There's always like they always start off with a flashback scene where they're kids, and it's formulaic, but it's a way to kind of introduce the audience and tell them what these characters are like. Like here's a personality, they've always been like this is always the dynamic. Now we're going to cut to them as adults. That's pretty much the only reason you do a scene like that. The intro scene where it shows like they existed as children, it does nothing to lead you into the movie aside from establish that dad owned a VHS store, which was it was just unnecessary flashback thing.
Yeah.
And dad was off screen so much that he just barely registered as a character.
Right.
Like,
yeah. That's all we heard about was just them talking about him or mentioning him.
Yeah, and it's like it relies on people to tell you about him to even kind of remind you that he exists as a character.
Yeah, and you know, again, they mentioned that was the main plot point, right? That you know, dad has disappeared. The last thing he was watching apparently was the video cassette of Beyond the Gates board game, and it's never even near the climax of the film. When they're in this otherworldly dimension, which is just look like a theater stage that they put props on. But...
yeah, it looks like I'll use the red light for this one.
And he shows up, and then it's like, why is he demonic? How did he get there in the first place? And
spoilers. I mean, I don't know that anybody really cares, but spoiler, like at the end of the movie, everybody that was killed throughout the movie, and I guess they were kind of killed by the game. Like they find like a voodoo doll in the box, and then the game leads them to find a voodoo doll. They dig it up out of the yard, and then they reach inside it, and then that disembowels a character, and then he shows up later in the game. So everybody that's associated with the game that dies returns as this demonic person. There's one character in there that I said he looked like Mortis, the musician.
Yeah,
it's like who the hell was he?
No, that's what I was understanding. I remember watching, and we're just like, who is this now? Who is this? Is this just some demon guy that just showed up? But
yeah, like there's just there were a lot of missed opportunities. Even working within the resources and the structure that they had, they missed a lot of opportunities to give us some interesting backstory, some lore, some kind of hell. If they're gonna start the movie with a flashback, it should be a flashback showing what the game's capable of or what it wants.
Right, like they're seeing other people play it or something's going on. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah. So your film sucks. No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
No, I mean, we're being critical of it now, but like we pointed out that there were some good aspects of it. You know, the special effects were good. The actors are good. And I think that it was just kind of like I think the pacing and the tone of it was a little bit off, where I didn't know if they wanted it to be funny or.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like it didn't quite know what kind of movie it wanted to be. It's for being so influenced by Stuart Gordon, they didn't really take take a lot of the aspects that made his films kind of these wonderfully campy classics. It's just the over the top like acting, and I don't know what does make his movie so wonderful. There's something really great about him, but
something it's campy. I always go back to Reanimator just because the acting is always over the top. There's always some kind of gore effects or something is happening within the films. It doesn't plot on for an hour before we see anything. Gordon gives us kind of what we need, spaced out. Nice.
Yeah.
Kind of like a crack dealer. Not that I would know that much about it.
Like his first dove is free, and then you're going to come back. But you're right. He always starts off like, I'm going to get you right off before the first credits, even like the initial credits roll, somebody's getting their head chopped off, or there's something just deeply compelling going on. And I mean, it's you could call it crass and base, but he's just like, okay, we need some female nudity in this. Yeah. So, you know, like that's bless her heart, Barbara Crampton. I mean, when I was doing research on this, I had to stop myself from just doing image searches of her. Like, no, this is not helpful for the podcast. But yeah, she, you know, she was great. He knew, like, what a trooper to even, like, I made the joke during our watch through of it that I'd love to be a fly on the wall when Stewart tried to sell her on some of the scenes that she was going to be in his movies. Yeah, like, you want me to do what with what? That's okay. I guess you're a genius. I'll do it.
I'll do it. Are you sure no one's going to see this film? Oh yeah.
It's not going to become the thing you're known for by any means.
Right. Now but I was thinking, like, even like Gordon's Dagon, which I absolutely love. Yeah. I love Dagon, and it kind of has that weird kind of slow intro, but he still incorporates some mystery in it. And then even when we're in the town of Imboka, stuff is already happening. There's a storm. The atmosphere is just literally dripping, you know, and just wet and, you know, mysterious. And then, you know, that's within the first, you know, 15 and 20 minutes. He just thrusts us into this world. And, you know, maybe that's what I was missing from a Gordon-esque or an homage to Gordon. Is something like that, where he thrusts you into this world. You know the rules of the game. You know what you're getting involved in. And Beyond the Gates didn't really deliver on that. Back to Beyond the Gates, it looked promising. It looked, you know, for me, it was right up my alley when I saw the cover and I saw the, you know, the theatrical trailer.
Yeah, board game. It's like, man, I get it. It's 80s nostalgia. Mm-hmm. I love board games. You know, let's do this. And they fair to middling.
Fair to middling. Well, I mean, if I could recommend, though, I would recommend people to check it out. I mean, if only at least to see some of the cool little kill scenes. I mean, I guess you could just go pop those up on YouTube or something. But
go watch the movie. They took enough time to make it. You can sacrifice an hour and 26 minutes out of your life. I think that's how long it was.
Yeah, it wasn't too long. In fact, 4 of those minutes are probably credits. So, you know,
I mean,
you always look the silver lining.
If anything, watch it with us. Watch us make fun of it. Yeah. And until we get bombarded with the inevitable cease and desist orders, stop doing that.
Well, I mean, I guess do we have anything else to say about Beyond the Gates?
No, it was a okay at best, a horror movie with some good kills from a director that I think is probably going places if he sticks with it. So
yeah, I think out of the ones we've watched so far, and I think this one is slightly above the rest that we've seen. So
it was definitely better than that last turd that I already purged from my memory.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. In fact, that one. I thought I had already edited. I thought I didn't edit any video on it, and so I started editing it, and then I get that. Are you sure you want to save over this file? I was like, what? And it turned out I had already put together the episode, and I was like, oh, I guess I did. I just
like you purged it from memory so much you forgot you edited the thing.
Yeah, I forgot I had even edited it down, so I was just like, oh, I did do that, didn't I? So, anyways. Well, that's Beyond the Gates, and
Beyond the Gates, and we have no idea what we're going to do next, but we'll figure it out. And if you stuck with us, we appreciate you checking in. We do horror movie commentary, reviews, and we do video games, horror video games. So check that out.
Exactly. We have all the good social media stuff will be posted in this video. You'll find it on our SoundCloud, and until then, I hope you guys don't suffer too much. And if you have a recommendation for a movie that you'd like us to watch and sit through, then please
post that shit.
Post that shit in the comments. Head to our Discord too. We got a Discord, and I think that's about it.
Yeah, for now, more to come.
See, right now, this is where we cue the outro music going out.
And it's creepy, ging gong, bing boo. I don't know how it goes, but
and then
you'll hear it.
This is how we fade out. We do this. Ready, Clay?
Yeah.
Ooh, goodbye, everybody.